What is the baptism with the Holy Spirit? Let me read to you from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 12 to 13. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves and free, and we were all made to drink in one Spirit. Now this verse is used in a controversial way, but I'll get back to it in a moment. Recently there's been a history of the Pentecostal movement in the 20th century, and a book entitled The Century of the Holy Spirit. It was published just recently. The title reflects the fact that there has been a renewed discussion and renewed interest in the person and the work of the Holy Spirit in the Christian world today, and especially in the last 100 years. And in fact, more books today have been written about the work of the Holy Spirit, the person of the Holy Spirit, since the mid-20th century. More books have been written today than have ever been written throughout church history combined. And so this shows the freshness and the movement of the Holy Spirit, a renewal of our understanding of the work of God through the Spirit. And much of this is due to the emerging Pentecostal and charismatic movements, with the emphasis of the baptism with the Holy Spirit and the sign gifts and the initial evidence of speaking in tongues. Now, Pentecostalism in particular distinguishes between Spirit-filled Christians and non-Spirit-filled Christians. To trust in Jesus for salvation is a work of the Spirit of God, where the Spirit comes to reside permanently within, as a deposit, as a pledge, awaiting for the fulfillment, the ultimate fulfillment in heaven. Every Christian experiences this internal regeneration and salvation through the Holy Spirit. The baptism with the Holy Spirit, or Spirit-filled person, or Spirit-filled Christian, is a Christian who receives the promised gift of the Father, the Holy Spirit, upon them as promised by Jesus and also prophesied by John the Baptist. The Spirit-filled Christian experiences the baptism with the Holy Spirit as a fresh infilling of the Spirit with power and the gifts for ministry. Non-Spirit-filled Christians, they state at salvation they receive regeneration, plus the fullness of the Holy Spirit with power and some gifts for ministry. Pentecostals believe that speaking in tongues is the initial evidence proving that one has received the Holy Spirit. Some charismatics differ slightly from Pentecostals in that they believe that speaking in tongues is not the initial evidence, but simply the manifestation of one of the spiritual gifts mentioned in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. But Pentecostal theologians appeal to the 4 instances recorded in the book of Acts of the Apostles, when people received the Holy Spirit. Previously, Jesus had breathed on them, they had got saved, and they were told to wait for the baptism with the Holy Spirit. And so we see 4 instances for the Jewish believers, Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through to 13. Then we see the Samaritan believers receiving the baptism with the Holy Spirit in Acts chapter 8, verses 14 to 17. Then we see God-fearers, the Gentiles who believed in Yahweh without being circumcised, Cornelius in Acts chapter 10, verses 9 through to 48. And then finally we see believers who were once pagan Gentiles in Acts chapter 19, verses 1 through to 7. So Acts, in addition to records the transition and redemption history where God, for his own sake, had to make it very clear that his Holy Spirit, his spiritual gifts were no longer limited to the Jews, but to the New Testament church for all people. And in fact, Acts begins by telling us that the apostles would witness to Christ first in Jerusalem and then right to the ends of the world, Acts chapter 1, verse 8. And notably, the Spirit's baptism that Luke records in Acts confirms and conforms to this geographic spread of the gospel. Jews in Jerusalem, God-fearers in Judea, Samaritans in Samaria, and Gentiles who represent the ends of the earth. And so the Lord promised his disciples to wait for the promise of the Father. And Christians may be at different points in their sanctification and levels of Christian maturity, but no Christian lacks the salvation work of the Holy Spirit in his life, and every Christian can call upon the Father for the promise that Jesus spoke of to his disciples, that was prophesied from the book of Joel. And so let us be encouraged by this today, for it is the means by which we grow into conformity to the image and the person of Christ.